Hey guys, thanks for watching. Welcome to the video. I heard Critical is calling it a career, at least in terms of reviewing IMs, so I thought now would be a good time to review the 02. In this video, we'll be talking about the 7Hz 02 and how it compares to the original 7Hz 0 IEM. The original 7Hz 0 was a breakthrough, an incredibly detailed and crispy IEM with a very good soundstage and good imaging that blew away anything in its price range. It worked great for all kinds of music other than maybe some of the most bass-heavy IEM and hip-hop tracks, and it's still one of my favorite IEMs for gaming and is only around $20. The 7Hz 0 is an amazing achievement and still holds up today. Let's see how it compares with the new 7Hz 02. In this video, we'll look at the build quality and sound properties of each option. I've listened to a lot of music on both of them, and I'll tell you how each one sounds, including soundstage imaging, bass, and vocal performance. I'll also include my thoughts on using these for long YouTube listening sessions and gaming. Is the new option an incremental improvement on an incredible IEM set, or should they have just left well enough alone? Let's find out in this review. If you're new to the channel, my name is Jeremy and I created this channel to help people find the best value in their audio investments and teach people about how to do things where I think I can be helpful. I spend a good amount of time listening to these units on songs I know very well, and I select songs from different genres that help me see what the units do well and what they struggle in. I'd love to interact with you guys. Ask me any kind of audio question below, regardless of if it has anything to do with this video, and I'd love to help if I can. Hit the like button too if you don't mind. Chapter markers are in the description. If you need them, feel free to jump around to whatever is helpful for you. I appreciate everyone who watches these videos and hope you all have a very blessed day. All right, let's get started. First, let's look at the construction. I looked on Amazon. It looks like the 02 is outselling the original more than a 2-to-1 basis. I'll tell you later on in the video why I'm surprised that that's the case. But in terms of the build quality, they're very similar to each other. Except the new one has a few options for colors. You can get an orange, blue, or a silver that looks a lot like the original one. I like the blue, so I got that. It also helped me keep straight which one's which while I was reviewing. The build quality of each is very similar, which is a cheap but rugged feeling plastic construction. Stands up to moderate use just fine. The ear section cable is reinforced with a plastic wrapper that I prefer over a standard cable, and I find it fits better and more quickly on my ears when they create the cable that way. The IEMs fit my ears pretty well. They don't slide naturally into place like some of the best fitting units do, but they do fit snug when paired with the right tips. The tips they come with are unusable for me though. I have a wider ear canal, and not only the largest one's not big enough, but they're not tacky at all, so they just slide right out of my ears. When I say they're unusable, I mean that by pressing the tips in, I get a seal and there's a good fit. So you can actually hear the bass, but if I don't do that, I lose almost all ability to hear bass and they sound absolutely terrible. So if you've got big ear canals, you probably want to look at getting third-party tips. I tried both my favorite warmer tips, like the CP100 Plus, as well as the spring tips, which add a little bit of crispiness to it. I settled on the spring tips to bring more life to them because I felt like it was a pretty tame IEM set, and it brought a little bit more energy back into the mix using those. But you're certainly not paying for the construction and the quality of the accessories included in the set, but what you're really paying for is Critical's tuning capabilities. So let's take a listen and see how it sounds. Okay, in this section, we will discuss how music sounds on these IEMs. All testing is being done by listening on an Apple Lightning to 3.5mm adapter and an iPhone to ensure the sound I'm getting out of these isn't due to having a high-end audio amplifier. Some IEMs do sound better with more power though, so just something to keep in mind. That shouldn't be an issue with these though. Keep in mind, this is the North American version of the Apple Lightning dongle, which can output up to 1 VRMS, while the European version can only do 0.5, so your results may vary using the European version. If you're using an Apple USB-C adapter though, the American and Euro versions are about the same at 1 VRMS, so I guess Europe just doesn't like proprietary connectors. The audio review portion of this review will be broken up into a few sections. We'll discuss soundstage and imaging first, followed by bass, vocals, and the ability to keep up with layered dynamic music. We'll call this section speed for simplicity. Many of the entry-level single-driver IEMs struggle in this department, so I think it's worth touching on. Then we will review spoken word and finally gaming. At the end, I'll give you my overall takeaways on whether I would recommend the set or not. Alright, starting with soundstage and imaging, the following impressions were all using the Moondrop spring tips, which will change later when we get to the head-to-head comparisons, and I used the spin fits for both of them. My benchmark metrics for Soundstage is the Eagles' Hotel California Hell Freezes Over tour version. This song has a great sense of dimension to the instruments and gives you a three-dimensional sense of the stage. It also has a great crowd presence that sounds very different depending on what you're using to listen to it with. My initial impression of the Soundstage 02 is the soundstage felt more left, right, middle than I expected. It still has a good sense of size, but the friendliness of the tuning on this set I think lends it to feeling less crisp in the instrument separation and less precise in the placement. This leads to an easy listen, but one that won't blow you away with a being there feeling. The rounded edges of the notes on this set lead to almost no vocal fatigue, which is good, but also less of a sense of energy and excitement. It feels like the lower registers of the mid-range are muddying up the sound a little and preventing a true sense of separation that I'm looking for. Okay, let's talk about bass. Listening to Doing It Right by Daft Punk, my first thought with this set sounds bassier than I was expecting. The punchy mid-range bass sounds are very satisfying, but the lower registers aren't as present as I would like. That being said, this is more of a satisfying bass listen than the original Zeros. I think the tuning is a mistake in the lower registers though. On big bass drops like the one in Deliverance by Thomas Bergerson, the new Zero tries and fails to hold the note. In doing so, the sound falls apart, sounds muddy in the lower registers, and almost distorted. I prefer the humble tuning of the original in this regard. It knows it can't do that and doesn't try. As such, the rest of the mix is free to shine without the driver becoming bogged down. For vocal references, I listened to Blues Traveler's Hook, Hotel California by the Eagles, I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston, and Norah Jones' Sunrise. Vocals were a mixed bag. I found the male performances safe and good, but not exceptional. I felt like I was missing some energy and sizzle from the male vocal performance, which left me unsatisfied. That being said, I could probably listen to these all day, so from a fatigue standpoint, these are probably much better than the old set. But that being said, the sound just wasn't that interesting to me. For female voices that had more upper end energy inherently, like Whitney Houston, these sounded fantastic. But Norah Jones, an artist I always associate with an easy to listen to mellow voice, sounded harsh somehow on this set. So I don't recommend these for vocals. So let's talk about Deliverance by Thomas Bergerson. It gives you all you need to test this in the most complex way possible. This song has the deepest notes you can ask for while mixing in layers of complicated instruments throughout the spectrum of sound. Throughout the beginning and middle parts of this challenging song, the driver is able to keep up fine, and it sounds great. Very good ability to hear layers, location, and speed of instruments. As mentioned before, it does struggle on the deep bass drop early in the song, all is well into the crescendo of the song where the unit completely falls apart, becoming muddy and distorted. This unit tries to do too much, I think. A single driver budget IM has to choose its battles, and I think this one is biting off more than it can chew on complicated tracks. If you're into rousing movie scores or symphonies, this isn't the unit for you. That being said, on something simpler like War Ensemble by Slayer, it does just fine. On simpler melodies with less dynamic range and number of instruments, it keeps up just fine. Just keep in mind what I said before if you're into more layered instrumentation. If you listen to a lot of spoken word, podcasts, YouTube, this is a great set for that. It has a very non-offensive and non-fatiguing sound with enough warmth to make it interesting. This is a solid recommendation for someone listening to people talk all day, so you can always use it for that. For gaming, this is just not a very good gaming headset. The lack of clear separation and location make everything feel vague and nebulous. I wouldn't use this for gaming. The first gen is much better choice for that. After my first listen with the newer generation IEM, I went back and spent some time with the original. These were my takeaways. Although the bass is less than the new generation, it seems to hone in on a smaller cross-section of bass and handle it very well and not get overextended. The top end has more sizzle than the first gen, which can make it potentially more fatiguing, but more interesting. Vocals really pop for male and females alike. I always use SpinFit CP100 tips on these to tone down the high end just a touch and give a touch more bass. The first generation Zero does have the potential for being fatiguing, so I'd watch out for that and decide if these are for you accordingly. Soundstage and Imaging is much better with more clearly defined separation on the old set of all instruments and vocals with more precise soundstage location. The lack of mud allows each of these to be distinctively placed and easily discernible from each other in the mix, which I just love for a $20 set. It also has the ability to keep up with all the elements of Deliverance much better, I think because it isn't trying to do as much, so the driver isn't getting bogged down in the bass while trying to do so many other things. In the same vein, this is a much better gaming set. Compared to the second gen, the first gen sounds like you have taken the veil off and can see, hear clearly again. Sounds are clearly discernible and easy to locate. Enemies are tracked by direction and distance very clearly for a bargain set. All in all, this review made me appreciate the first generation that much more. Okay, we'll get started on my final thoughts and opinions, but before we do, if you don't mind, take a moment, tap the like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. If you're someone who would like a nice, easy listening IM that's good for anything and probably won't give you a headache, the new gen is really good. If you'd like to listen to audiobooks or podcasts, this is a good set for that. Probably pop music, things like that. I think you'll really enjoy them. But I feel like that's a lot of IEMs in this range that could do that. The disappointment for me is the first generation was pretty magical in the way it punched above its weight class and did something pretty distinctive. It did this by being able to offer incredible soundstage and imaging for an IEM, great detail in vocals, no sense of mud or smearing between instruments, and functional tight bass that suited its purpose and didn't mess up the whole show. By way of this tuning, it was accidentally also one of my favorite gaming IEMs. Is the newest generation that? No, but that's okay. I do wish they have just improved on the formula of the original instead of trying to invent the wheel, but that's okay too. They're still making the first generation, which I'm thankful for. In fact, while they are still making it, I may just pick up a couple more pairs, just in case. Well, that's what I got. Appreciate you all watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, comment below. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching.